Title: Between Flames, Truly Blazing Love. The room was dimly lit, shadows stretching across the walls as the night closed in. The scent of antiseptic lingered faintly, a constant reminder of the sterile, clinical space they had come to know too well. The only sound was the faint crackle of the small electric heater in the corner, struggling to keep the cold at bay. She stood near the door, her heart heavy with a familiar ache. She had been watching him for hours now. He was sitting at the edge of his bed, his hands trembling, his brow furrowed in concentration. His eyes were wide, distant, as though he were caught between two worlds. She knew the signs. The way his fingers twitched, the slight rocking of his body, the murmurs escaping his lips. It was a cycle that had become all too familiar. He wasn't like other people. His mind worked differently, in ways that she had never fully understood. Diagnosed with a neurological disorder, his world was often a blur of overwhelming sensations, confusion, and frustration. His movements, erratic and uncoordinated, were part of the autism that shaped his life. But more than that, there were moments when his body seemed to turn against him, when he fought a battle inside himself that no one could see. Tonight was one of those nights. She watched, her chest tightening as he fumbled with the small lighter in his hand. His eyes glazed over, unfocused, and for a moment she thought he might be trying to light the heater. But then she realized the truth. He wasn't trying to warm the room. He was trying to burn himself. "Hey," she whispered, her voice shaking with a mix of concern and helplessness. He didn't hear her, lost in his own world. His face was twisted in pain, and his hands, those hands that she had held so many times, were trembling as they moved closer to his skin. A deep panic surged through her. She had seen this before, but each time it was harder to bear. She knew he didn't mean to hurt anyone, least of all himself. It was the disorder, the way his brain processed the world, that made moments like this feel inevitable. He couldn't stop the compulsion, the need to act, to cope in ways that didn't make sense to anyone else. With a burst of adrenaline, she moved forward. "No!" she cried, reaching him just as the flame neared his arm. In one swift motion, she placed herself between the lighter and him. Her heart pounded in her chest as the heat from the small flame kissed her skin. She felt the searing sting, but the pain wasn't important right now. All that mattered was him. "Hey," she said again, this time more firmly, her voice breaking through the fog in his mind. "Look at me." His eyes slowly shifted to hers, and for a moment there was a flicker of recognition. He didn't understand why she was there, why she had placed herself in harm's way. But he saw her, the person who had always been by his side, the one who never judged, never backed away from the storms inside him. She took the lighter from his hand, her fingers trembling. She didn't look at the burn on her own skin, it was already fading. What mattered was that he was safe. "Why did you do that?" he asked, his voice soft, filled with confusion. I didn't mean to hurt you." Tears welled up in her eyes. I know, she whispered. "But I can't let you hurt yourself." For a moment there was silence. The world outside the room seemed to disappear, and all that was left was the quiet sound of their breathing. "I'm sorry," he whispered, his eyes downcast. He didn't fully understand what had just happened, but he understood the weight of her sacrifice. He always did. She sat beside him, her arm around his shoulders. "You don't have to apologize," she said, her voice soft and steady. "I'm here. Always. No matter what." And for the first time that night, he seemed to relax, the storm inside him quieting for just a moment. He leaned into her, feeling her warmth, her safety. In that space, there was no confusion, no fear, only the quiet, unwavering love of someone who would do anything to protect him.